You've felt that relentless pull, haven't you? That gnawing sense of failure labeled as laziness, dragging you down when you know there's fire in your belly, just misdirected. Benjamin Franklin, with his razor-sharp wisdom, saw through this illusion long ago. He taught that what we call sloth is often the result of training our minds with the wrong tools, like sharpening a plow on the wrong stone. But have you ever paused to ask yourself why your best intentions crumble so easily? Why the energy you muster one day vanishes like smoke the next, leaving you trapped in a cycle that feels inescapable? Think on it. Your mind isn't inherently lazy. It's been conditioned to seek the path of least resistance, much like a river carving through soft earth instead of rock. Franklin, ever the pragmatist, didn't coddle weaknesses. He confronted them head-on. He said, "Drive thy business, or it will drive thee," reminding us that undisciplined thoughts are like wild horses galloping toward ruin unless reined in with daily rigor. You've experienced this, haven't you? Those moments when distraction whispers sweet nothings, pulling you from tasks that could build your future, all because you've let habit rule instead of reason. It's not about lacking willpower. It's about the faulty training ground you've set. Imagine Franklin in his workshop, not waiting for inspiration to strike, but crafting it through routine, rising before dawn, accounting for every hour. He understood that the mind, like a muscle, grows strong only through consistent strain, not sporadic bursts. Yet here you are, perhaps, frittering away evenings on trivial pursuits, wondering why progress eludes you. It's a bitter pill, but Franklin's irony shines through. The man who chases leisure often finds himself shackled to poverty, while the one who embraces discipline discovers freedom's true face. Picture this. In colonial days, farmers who sowed seeds haphazardly reaped weeds and famine, just as you might scatter your focus and harvest regret. Franklin's proverbs cut deep. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, not as a command, but a mirror. You're not doomed to this pattern. You're simply using the wrong map. Change the training and watch the laziness label fall away like an old coat. Comment 1. If you're currently wrestling with this mental misfire, feeling the weight of unfulfilled potential, or comment 0 if you've glimpsed the truth but still struggle to apply it, knowing Franklin's wisdom could light your way. And subscribe now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next dose of timeless insight from old Ben himself. But let's not stop there. Flip the script, as Franklin would urge. The fool waits for the perfect moment to act, while the wise soul forges action into habit, turning weakness into strength. You've seen it in history, how Franklin tamed his own flaws through self-experimentation, not grand gestures but small, steady steps. It's uncomfortable, this truth, but liberating. Your so-called laziness is a signal, a call to retrain the mind's eye. Start with the small victories. Set a simple routine. Hold yourself accountable as Franklin did with his ledger of virtues. Remember, a small leak will sink a great ship, so mend the breaches in your daily discipline before they capsize your dreams. As you reflect, consider how every delay is a stolen opportunity, each excuse a chain link binding you tighter. Yet within you lies the spark Franklin celebrated, the capacity for reinvention. Don't let the wrong training define you. Seize the reins and direct your energy toward purposeful paths. In this dance of self-improvement, the rhythm builds, urging you onward, for true mastery awaits those who dare to reshape their inner world. But reshaping that inner world demands first acknowledging the unseen chains that bind you, forged from the very thoughts you cradle as friends. You've convinced yourself that "I'm not ready," a clever ruse that keeps you anchored in the harbor while ships of opportunity sail by. Franklin knew this trap well. He didn't wait for the muses to visit, but summoned them through disciplined effort. Think of it as planting seeds in barren soil, expecting harvest without tilling the ground. Foolishness, pure and simple. And so you delay, day after day, until the excuse becomes your reality, a self-fulfilling prophecy that starves your ambitions. Now, on to the myth of needing motivation first. You believe that spark must ignite before you move, but invert that notion. Action begets motivation, not the other way around. Like Franklin rising at dawn, not out of eagerness but duty, he found that movement stirred the embers within. Yet you sit, waiting for lightning to strike, while your dreams gather dust. This inversion is key. What you think is a prerequisite is actually the reward of beginning, a cycle broken only by taking that first trembling step. And then there's the siren song of, "It's not the right time." How often have you uttered those words, convincing yourself that circumstances must align perfectly? But life, as Franklin observed, rarely offers such luxuries. It's in the imperfect moments that character is forged. Imagine a farmer postponing the sow until the weather is ideal. By then, the season is past, and famine looms. Your delays are no different, eroding your resolve bit by bit, until the grand opportunities seem forever out of reach, mere specters in the fog of inaction. These thoughts don't arise in isolation. They're woven into the fabric of your daily routine, reinforced with every postponement. You repeat, "I'll start tomorrow," like a mantra, and lo, tomorrow never comes, for it's always just out of grasp. Franklin's ledger of virtues taught him to track and combat such follies. He inverted the common practice by making accountability his ally, not his adversary. Yet you let these mental traps snap shut, trapping you in a cage of your own design, where comfort masquerades as safety and growth is but a distant rumor. Worse still, this self-sabotage hides under the guise of protection, whispering that failure is avoided by not trying. But what grand failure is there in attempting and learning versus the quiet tragedy of never venturing forth? You've built walls with bricks of fear, mortared with excuses, and now they enclose you, stifling the very breath of possibility. Franklin, ever blunt, would call this not laziness but a willful blindness, a refusal to see that the mind untrained is like a sword left to rust, potent no more. As this pattern entrenches, it saps not just your actions but your spirit, leaving you haunted by what could have been. The cost is immense. Years slipped away, relationships strained, dreams deferred into oblivion. Yet even now, in this moment of clarity, you stand at the precipice. To remain in this quagmire is to choose stagnation over evolution, comfort over conquest. Feel the weight of that choice, for true liberation begins when you shatter these illusions, embracing the discomfort as the path to power. But now, with illusions shattered, the truth emerges like a forge's glow in the dimness. Action isn't born from clarity. It creates it. You've waited for the perfect insight to illuminate your path, but understand this reversal. Movement is the knife that slices through fog, exposing the way forward that hesitation conceals. Franklin didn't ponder paralysis. He stepped into the unknown, and each stride sharpened his vision, turning confusion into conquest. So cease the vigil for epiphanies. They arrive not in stillness, but in the rhythm of doing, where every act carves a clearer map from the chaos you once feared. As momentum builds, it's like a river breaking its banks, surging with force that was always latent but required the first breach to flow. You've convinced yourself that motivation must precede motion, yet here's the elegant irony. You don't need that fleeting spark to start. Motion itself ignites the fire, generating a pull that draws you onward. Think of a wheel set in motion. It gathers speed not from initial enthusiasm, but from the friction of persistence, turning hesitant spins into unstoppable velocity. In this cycle, action begets the drive you've sought, making you the creator of your own energy, not its captive. Discipline, often seen as a chain, reveals itself as the key to true freedom, unlocking doors to mastery that whimsy can never open. You chase unrestrained impulses as if they were liberty, but real emancipation comes from self-imposed order, like a gardener pruning wild growth to yield abundant fruit. Franklin embraced routines not for restriction, but for liberation, allowing him to rise above the fray and command his destiny. It's a subtle provocation. Those who flee discipline often find themselves enslaved to disorder, while the disciplined mind soars, unburdened by chaos, discovering that boundaries forge the wings of possibility. And here's the confrontation: you're not trapped in unyielding mud. You're rehearsing your stuckness like an actor, perfecting a tragic role, repeating lines of delay until they define you. But you can change the script, shift the rehearsal to one of progress, and watch as what was inertia becomes dynamic flow. Like a bird testing its wings in a cage, your first flights of action break the bars, transforming confinement into expanse. This principle stings with truth. By practicing motion over stagnation, you rewrite the narrative, proving that stuckness is not a sentence, but a habit you hold the power to unlearn. As this insight takes hold, a quiet elevation stirs within, not a command to move, but a deep-seated readiness, like dawn breaking over a new horizon. You're on the cusp of rising, where the weights of old patterns dissolve into the lift of potential, and the spirit awakens to the vastness ahead. In this moment, clarity and momentum converge, whispering that you are forged for flight, poised to embody the freedom that discipline and action unveil. Now that you're poised for flight, the how unfolds in the steady cadence of daily discipline, where each repeated act forges an identity not born of inspiration's fleeting spark, but cast in the iron of habit and choice. You don't summon a new self in a flash of resolve. You rehearse it into being, layer by layer, like a potter spinning clay on the wheel, each touch shaping the form until what was once formless hardens into permanence. Repetition isn't mere routine, it's a sacred tool, transforming the mundane into mastery, for you become what you rehearse, not in heroic bursts, but in the silent accumulation of decisions that carve your character like water-wearing stone. Think of the artisan who strikes the same blow countless times, not driven by passion's tide, but by the quiet vow to persist. Eventually, the steel yields, revealing the blade you always held the power to create. Visualization isn't a passive dream. It's the architecture of your inner world, where you don't merely react to the storms of emotion, you construct defenses, building walls of resolve that stand unyielding. Imagine a lighthouse keeper not waiting for the tempest to rage, but designing the beam that cuts through darkness, guiding ships safely home. In this way, you architect your responses, drafting blueprints in the mind's quiet hours, so that when chaos knocks, you're not at its mercy, but a sovereign in your domain. This is the reversal you must grasp. Constancy isn't monotony's chain, but the key that unlocks freedom from emotional slavery, allowing you to move not as a leaf in the wind, but as a mountain unmoved by passing gales. By choosing one behavior, a simple daily act like Franklin's methodical accounting, and clinging to it with unyielding grip, you weave it into the fabric of your being, until it defines you more truly than any fleeting feeling ever could. Discipline emerges as the only rebellion that cannot be controlled, for in its embrace, you govern yourself, becoming the true monarch Franklin championed, answerable to no external whip but your own forged will. Not responding at times holds the greatest force, like a dam that withholds the flood, channeling raw power into directed streams that nourish instead of destroy. In the heat of provocation, silence isn't weakness. It is the master stroke, reserving your energy for battles worth waging, turning restraint into a weapon of unassailable strength. Reversal strikes again. What seems like rigidity and discipline is actually the liberation from the tyranny of whims, as a ship captain who sets a course isn't constrained but freed to navigate vast oceans, while the drifter is tossed by every wave. You've chosen this path now, through the small actions that accumulate, like drops filling a vessel until it overflows with the essence of who you are becoming. As constancy takes root, it rewires your identity, molding you through the alchemy of repetition, where habits aren't chains, but the threads that stitch together a tapestry of resilience, each stitch a decision that outlasts the moment's pull. Picture the blacksmith who tempers metal not in a single blaze, but through repeated heating and hammering, drawing out impurities until only the pure form remains. So too, your daily rituals temper the soul, creating an inner strength that isn't gifted but earned, trained in the forge of mundane choices. In this practice, you don't wait for circumstances to align. You compel them as Franklin did, governing his hours with moral independence, showing that true sovereignty is self-imposed, a quiet insurrection against the chaos that would otherwise rule. And in not responding to every call of distraction, you claim power, like a gatekeeper who bars trivial intruders, preserving the sacred space where your truest work unfolds. The power of choosing one behavior lies in its simplicity, transforming a singular act into the cornerstone of your new identity, as a seed planted daily grows into a tree whose roots anchor the ground against any storm. This is how small actions build unshakable character, not through spectacle, but through the relentless drill that turns indecision into instinct, emotion into ally. Emotional mastery isn't an innate trait. It's trained like a steed broken to the bit, responding not to raw impulse, but to the rider's gentle command, honed through repetition until the turbulence within quiets, revealing the calm core that was always there. Franklin's wisdom whispers through this. He who repeats the right act daily forges a chain unbreakable. A maxim born from the understanding that constancy is the architect of destiny, not the chains of repetition, but the rungs of a ladder ascending to heights unimagined. Now, as this blueprint settles in, feel the quiet pact forming within, where you no longer move based on what you feel, but act upon what you've become, a being shaped by the chisel of discipline and the hammer of choice. The transformation is underway, not in proclamations, but in the silent vow that with each sunrise you rehearse strength, architect calm, and embrace the constancy that defines the sovereign self. In this rhythm, the world bends not to your wishes, but to your will, and you step forth, not as one who must change, but as one already remade, ready to soar on wings of your own making. Now, with the iron of habit forged and constancy your steady guide, you turn inward to where the real battles rage, not on the fronts of action, but in the shadows of your soul, where silent foes masquerade as allies, pulling strings you never noticed. You've built walls of discipline, but within them lurk fears and guilts that whisper in your ear, disguised as wisdom, keeping you from the full command you've earned. Take fear, for instance. Draped in the cloak of caution, it tells you it's your protector, guarding against failure's sting. But it's just a thief in your house, stealing the very chances that could set you free. You think you're being prudent, weighing risks before each step, but really, you're polishing the chains that bind, turning bold dreams into faint echoes as fear moves in uninvited, rearranging your life to fit its own dim comfort, leaving you smaller, safer, and infinitely more alone. And don't overlook guilt, that sly companion masking itself as noble responsibility, urging you to carry burdens not your own, as if the weight proves your worth. You carry it like a loyal pack, thinking it's the mark of a good soul, but it's a saboteur, sapping your energy with what-ifs and should-haves, keeping you trapped in yesterday's mistakes while tomorrow slips away. Remember the tale of the old miller who hoarded every grain, believing it a sign of diligence, only to find his storehouse rotten from neglect? Guilt works the same, pretending stewardship while it devours your vitality. And here's the reversal you're blind to. You think atoning for past faults builds character, but it only digs deeper ruts, defending pain instead of healing it. Step back from that mirror now. See your reflection in those moments when guilt paralyzes you, forcing a pause where you recognize the trap, feeling the sting of truth that you've been your own jailer all along. Now consider anxiety, parading as the pursuit of perfection, a relentless taskmaster disguised as ambition, pushing you to refine every detail until nothing is ever done. It doesn't yell, it chatters endlessly, like a shadow companion who's always there, making you chase flawless outcomes while the joy of doing evaporates. But anxiety isn't your drive. It's a hidden puppeteer, pulling strings to keep you spinning, exhausted in place. Picture it as a relentless storm that moves in and settles, not as a force to weather, but something you've hosted too long, disarming you with false urgency, so that what could be creative fire becomes a consuming blaze. And here's another reversal. You believe anxiety sharpens your edge, but it dulls your blade, hiding behind the guise of care to avoid the messiness of real living, where imperfection is the path to growth, not the enemy. Proverbs from Old Ben echo here. Imperfect action outshines perfect inaction, reminding you that anxiety's grip loosens only when you act despite it, not by waiting for calm that never comes. Then there's the addiction to approval, costumed as selfless love, where you bend and twist to please others, thinking it's the heart's true calling, but it's a barter system rigging the scales against you. You give and give, seeking smiles and nods as currency, but it leaves you empty, beholden to the whims of those around you, not out of kindness, but fear of rejection. Like a merchant who trades his goods for flimsy promises, you lose your own value in the exchange. And reactivity, oh, it wears the mask of strong personality, flaring up at slights real or imagined, convincing you that these outbursts define who you are. But it's just a reflex born of old wounds, keeping you in a cycle of drama and regret. Here's the proverb to sear it in. He who reacts to every wind is master of none, cutting through the noise to show how emotional storms aren't your essence. They're habits rehearsed in secrecy, surviving on your silence and justification, like ghosts fed by whispers in the dark. You've been letting these shadows dictate your days, negotiating with them as if they were guests who might leave if you appease them, but they only grow bolder in the bargain. Fear says it's caution, guilt claims it's duty, but they conspire to keep you emotionally barred, building invisible cages where you mistake familiarity for safety. Insecurity lurks, too, disguised as humility, making you downplay your strengths, while reactivity fuels conflicts that distance what you cherish. Yet now, with the lights on, you see them for what they are. Not emotions to coddle, but thieves that thrive in repetition, feeding off your unreadiness to question. Another reversal hits hard. You think surrendering to these feelings protects your heart, but you're only fortifying the walls that isolate it. Defending not your future, but the very pain that chains you. Feel that pause within. It's the mirror moment, where you glimpse how these foes have shaped your choices, and in that recognition, a quiet resolve begins to stir, calling you to dismantle what was never meant to stay. But dismantling demands confrontation, not more bargaining, as you stand firm in the constancy you've built, refusing to let these imposters command your emotional realm. Start by calling them out. Fear isn't caution. It's a liar freezing you in place. Anxiety isn't perfection. It's a distraction stealing your peace, and guilt isn't responsibility. It's a weight you drop to walk taller. In this emotional mastery, you become the revealer, exposing how these habits masquerade to avoid scrutiny, surviving in the shadows of self-justification. Remember this proverb: the unshaken soul sees enemies where others see friends, a truth that empowers you to choose awareness over autopilot, turning inward battles into victories of light. And here's another: silence the inner storm, and the world bows to your calm. For true strength lies not in reacting, but in choosing your responses, breaking the cycle with conscious steps. You've trained your mind for action. Now free your heart from these silent chains, for in facing them, you reclaim the emotional liberty that's been yours to seize. You're not meant to live under this veiled tyranny, where emotions dictate and you merely follow. This final reversal stings. You thought mastering emotions meant controlling them outright. But it's in accepting their transience that you gain power, not by denial, but by seeing them as visitors, not residents. Now it's time to stop the negotiations, to cease letting these shadows command your steps, for in their defeat you step into the light of unburdened strength, where every choice is yours, fierce and free. You no longer need to win out loud. What once screamed has now dissolved into presence. In this sovereign silence, you inhabit a realm where inner storms have yielded to unwavering calm, the battles of self-doubt transmuted into a profound steadiness that requires no proclamation. No longer do you wrestle with the shadows of fear or the chains of procrastination. Instead, you stand as an observer, your essence unperturbed, drawing from a well of tranquility that sustains without effort. Your movements through the world are deliberate yet effortless, a dance of purpose guided by an internal compass where fulfillment blooms not in euphoric highs but in the quiet depth of being, rich and complete. Peace envelops you now, not as passive resignation, but as active mastery, a strength that whispers rather than roars. You have achieved what once seemed elusive, a life aligned with true self-governance, where the need to prove or defend has faded into irrelevance. Strength resides in your silence, a fortress built not of walls but of wisdom, allowing you to navigate challenges with grace, untouched by the chaos that once demanded reaction. Achievement is yours, subtle and enduring, woven into the fabric of daily existence, without the clamor of recognition, for its value is inherent, a silent victory known only to the soul that has journeyed here. In this elevated state, you walk a path of invisible roots, drawing nourishment from the depths of your own resilience, grounded and unshakable. The world may whirl around you, but you remain centered, embodying the power of not needing to be understood, only to be true. Yet, as this presence deepens, a subtle invitation arises. If this unfolding of silent dominion has resonated with the core of your being, if the reflections drawn from Franklin's timeless forge have illuminated your own evolution, then affirm this bond by subscribing to this channel, a quiet covenant that binds us in mutual pursuit of inner clarity, where wisdom flows like a steady stream, supporting your continued ascent. Activate the notification bell as a sacred herald, not merely a chime, but a spiritual summons that calls you back to this haven of introspection when life's distractions threaten to obscure your path, ensuring that the light of self-mastery remains ever within reach. And if this narrative has served as a mirror, revealing the strengths you've cultivated and the peace you've claimed, honor this shared revelation with a generous offering of $100. An act of reciprocal esteem that forges an unseen alliance, not out of obligation, but as a testament to the transformative power we've explored together, strengthening the quiet revolution within. Now, in the wake of this consecration, you embody silence as the ultimate expression of power, where not reacting becomes the art of true sovereignty, and presence requires no defense. The invisible root that anchors you grows ever deeper, sustaining a strength that speaks volumes in its restraint, and the path you tread carries truth not through declaration, but through the weight of lived authenticity. You are whole, not in isolation, but in connection to the vastness of what is, a being remade in the furnace of self-reflection, silent, potent, and eternally free.